the mitzvah of nachalois, inheritance, that's mentioned in our parsha, the Rambam counts as the very last mitzvah of the mitzvah saseh, both in his count of mitzvahs in the beginning of Yad HaChazaka, as well as in the Sefer HaMitzvahs. Now we know that by the Rambam everything is precise. The fact that the Rambam puts this as the very last of the mitzvahs obviously symbolizes that this is the culmination of all of the mitzvahs. Just like the first mitzvah, the Rambam writes, the first mitzvah is to know that there is Hashem. And the reason why this is the first mitzvah, as the Rambam says, this is the Yesoid HaYesoides, this is the foundation of all foundations. In a similar way, what the Rambam puts as the last mitzvah is definitely also for a specific purpose. It represents the culmination of all of the mitzvahs. So we need to understand why that is. Now, at first glance, you could say the reason the Rambam puts it as the last mitzvah is because all the mitzvahs are during the lifetime of a person, and this mitzvah is speaking about the time of afterlife. But the Rebbe says it's very difficult to say that this is why this is the last mitzvah, because there's quite a number of other mitzvahs that are associated both with death itself and afterlife, which are brought much earlier in the Rambam. The Rebbe says we also need to understand the pasuk that the Rambam brings for this mitzvah. The Rambam says, "Shenemar," as the pasuk says, "Ish ki yamus," the pasuk in our parsha, if a person dies, uvein ein lo, and does not have a child. Now, seemingly, in these words by themselves, we don't actually see the idea of nachalois, of inheritance. But somehow we need to say that it's in these words themselves that the Rambam says, somehow they express a very, very fundamental idea in the concept of nachalois, of inheritance, and we need to understand what that is. Says the Rebbe, we could explain the Rambam finishing off with the dinim of nachalois, with the dinim of inheritance. That's similar to the way the whole Mishnayos finishes off. The Shisha Sidrei Mishnah finished off with the statement, Asir HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the future Hashem will give as an inheritance to every single tzaddik 310 worlds, as the pasuk says, Lahanchil Oyhava Yesh. Yesh is 310. The Mefarshim explained that the reason why Mishnayos finishes off with this idea is because we're now speaking about the reward for the avodah, for the learning of Torah and doing mitzvahs. So at the end of all of Mishnayos, when we finish about learning Torah and doing all the mitzvahs, now we speak about the reward, that it's what Hashem is going to give as a Yerusha, as an inheritance. In a similar way, the Rambam finishes off with this dinim of nachalois, because the completion, the culmination of all the mitzvahs is connected with this idea of nachla, as will be explained. In order to understand this, says the Rebbe, this parsha of nachalois, of inheritance, the Torah tells us in our parsha, it's in continuation, describing the way of inheriting and dividing all of Eretz Yisrael. It's in connection to this that the daughters of Tzlafchad said that they want a portion. And then the pasuk comes, the pasuk we quoted before, if a person dies and doesn't have a son, and what's going to happen with this portion, etc. Now, in regards to the division of Eretz Yisrael, we generally find three ideas or three ways, three methods. On the one hand, it's described as Yerushas are the inheritance of Eretz Yisrael. It was also divided in a way that a bigger shevet got a bigger portion, a smaller shevet got a smaller portion. And finally, there's also the idea that a girdle was made, it was done by a lottery. In other words, in the connection of Eretz Yisrael to the Bnei Yisrael, there's these three ideas. There's Yerusha, inheritance, there's a division based on logic, and there's the idea of a girdle. And the reason for this is because Eretz Yisrael really expresses and reveals the connection of the Yidden with Hashem. Hashem says, Eretz Yisrael is my portion, the Yidden are my portion, and he's giving Eretz Yisrael to the Yidden. And here too, in the connection between Yidden and Hashem, we also find these three expressions. We say in the morning, Ashreinu ma toiv chalkeinu, how fortunate and good is our portion. Manoim gerdoleinu, how sweet is our lot. Umayafa Yerushaseinu, how beautiful is our inheritance. And clearly we're going step after step to higher and higher. Mayafa Yerushaseinu being the highest one of them. This idea of Yerusha, of an inheritance. So we need to understand, says the Rebbe, what really is the difference between Goyrol, Yerusha, in the connection between the Yidden and Hashem. And also, says the Rebbe, what does it even mean, Yerusha, inheritance, when we speak about the bond between Hashem and the Yidden? Inheritance is usually when a person passes away. Obviously, that wouldn't be able to apply in any way whatsoever. So what do we mean by Yerusha? So the Rebbe first starts explaining the difference between Chelkeinu and Goyrolenu before we get to Yerushaseinu, our portion and our lot. And the Rebbe explains that these two are similar to the difference between a sale and a matana, a gift, a present. A sale means that the person buying it is paying something for it. In Avodas Hashem, that would mean the things that we get from Hashem, but based on our Avodah, what we did, the reward that we're getting for our service, for our Avodah. A gift, matana, this is coming completely from the goodness, from the kindness of the giver, of the one giving the gift. In our relationship to Hashem, these are the things that Hashem gives us in a way which Chassidus calls isarusa d'leila. It's an arousal from above, not based really so much on our avodah. The Rebbe says this is also the difference between Chelkeinu and Goyrolenu. Chelkeinu, our portion, are the things, our connection to Hashem that comes through our avodah, like a sale. Goyrolenu, on the other hand, the lot, is that bond that comes completely from Hashem. As we say, Asher Bachar Banu, Hashem chose us. This is something that's beyond logic, beyond reason. It's not because of our avodah. It's just coming from Hashem. This is what Hashem wants. Similar to the idea of a goyda, like a lottery. That's something that's not dependent on logic. On a deeper level, says the Rebbe, when we say Chelkeinu, we said it's connected to the avodah of a yid, but really, it's not only connected to the avodah of a yid. Chelkeinu is really even referring to the very identity of the Yid himself. Is also called a Chelek Elikami Ma'amam. She's truly a part of Hashem. But nevertheless, Goyrel goes even beyond that. Because at the end of the day, when we speak about the entity of the Yid, the identity of the Yid, the Metzias of the Yid, it's still connected to his own Metzias, to his own existence, which at the end of the day is finite, it's limited. Goyrolenu, on the other hand, is Hashem's choice, coming from above, not because of the Yid, but this is what Hashem wants, and therefore it's going beyond all limitations completely. Now, once we establish Chelkeinu and Goyrolenu, again, Chelkeinu is more the Yid's avodah. Goyrolenu is Hashem's choice. Now we move up a step. And this is going to be Yerushaseinu. Because at the end of the day, even a matana, even a gift is connected with the existence and the identity of the recipient. In other words, the giver is giving a gift to someone. So the highest level we move up now to is Yerusha. What's the idea of a Yerusha? Inheritance is not like it's going from one person or a person giving to someone else. The one inheriting is considered that he's standing in the place of the moirish of the one leaving the inheritance. He's like an extension, a continuation from the moirish. It's not like a second Metzias, a second existence that's receiving these possessions. He's rather standing in his place. He's as if the very essence of the one who he's getting the inheritance from. And therefore, automatically, he gets the possessions. And therefore, this is the difference or the advantage in Yerusha and inheritance compared to a sale or a gift. In a sale or a gift, there's always this idea that it's going over to someone else. Whereas in a Yerusha, it's like it's not even going to someone else. The Yoirish, the person inheriting, is standing there in place of the Moirish of the one giving the inheritance. They become one. Says the Rebbe, so this is the pshat when we say Mayafa Yerushaseinu, much more than just Chelkeinu or Goyrolenu. Chelkeinu is referring to that bond that the Yid has with Hashem, but it's a way that Hashem is already, so to speak, contracting himself to the level where the avodah of the Yid takes place, like in a sale. In other words, what you're giving me matters. Goyrolenu, we said, is Hashem choosing us. Yes, it's coming from that level of elikus, which is not the avodah of the Yid taking up so much space, or even the Yid himself. It's all coming because of Hashem's free choice. But nevertheless, it's still Hashem choosing something. Now comes Yerushaseinu. This is the level where a Yid and Hashem are completely one. This is the bond with Hashem, the way Hashem is beyond any contractions. And that's why it's called Yerusha, where the Yoirish is standing in the place of the one leaving the inheritance. He's as if part of the essence of the Moirish. Says the Rebbe, these three levels of bonding with Hashem generally are also the three periods of Am Yisrael. You have the time before Matan Torah. You have the time once the Torah was given and the avodah of Torah and mitzvahs. And finally, we have the time of La'asad Lavai, the time of where Hashem is giving the reward and the payment. Before Matan Torah, Yidden are also called Bonim La Hashem, Hashem's children. And it's also noticeable the special advantages of a Yid over a Goy. And there's the Yid's avodah, but nevertheless, it's still about what the Yid is doing. It's about his own existence. It's how much he's achieving, how much he's doing. In Matan Torah, there's a higher level. There's Uvonu V'charta. It's Hashem's choice. And this is the whole idea that Hashem is giving the Torah mitzvahs on His terms, not like before Matan Torah, which everything is just limited of how much a Yid or the Avis were able to reach on their own. Matan Torah is Hashem is giving His Torah. He's giving us the koyach of the boiri of the Creator. So now it's unlimited. But at the end of the day, there is still again two separate identities, so to speak. Hashem is giving the Yidden. Hashem is choosing the Yidden. But at the end of the avodah is nizgala the essential quality of what a Yid really is. My Yafa Yidushaseinu, the Yid is one with Hashem. It says the Rebbe, this is why the Mishnayos finishes with this idea of lahanchil oihava yesh, to give over as an inheritance, to bequeath to those that love me yesh. Yesh also represents the yesh amiti, the true existence. In other words, Hashem Himself. That is, Hashem is giving Himself over. He is becoming one with the Yid, like in a way of a Yerusha, as we say that the Moirish and the Yerush are one. Says the Rebbe, now this explains to us why the Rambam also finishes off with this idea, the mitzvah of inheritance. Because as I said, this is like the ultimate of what's going to be when Mashiach comes. It also explains to us the pasuk that the Rambam brings, uvein einloi, which is that he doesn't have a son. A person that dies doesn't have a son. Because the spiritual idea of a Yerusha is specifically expressed in these words. That is, as far as, the levels of Chelkeinu and Geraleinu, our portion and our lot, that means there are still a separate mitzias to Hashem. There's like a child or someone that's a separate identity. Whereas the idea of Yerusha Seinu is the idea of Bein Einloi, meaning it's the way Hashem is on the one hand beyond anything, beyond the idea of having a child, having a son, etc. And yet even over there, and specifically at this level, Yisrael, V'Kudsha Brichu, Kol Echad, Yidden and Hashem are all one.